Let's look at how to slot a bridge for slotless pins. And I've talked about this in other videos, but slotting a bridge has numerous advantages to it. Number one is the ball end sits into the groove in the bridge instead of sitting outside. So let's take a look at that again. Here's a ball. Ball end goes in here. This bridge is slotted. Let me get it all set up here. It's kind of an awkward thing to handle. There we go. When you slot the bridge, the ball end will rest up here, and of course it'll rest on the bridge plate and not the bridge itself. This is a little tight. There we go. It'll sit up here like this. Okay, see the ball end up here? And it'll be sitting on the bridge plate. The pin is solid. It won't bend back and forth. The ball cannot work its way up into that groove right there. It's just a more secure way of doing it. It also, when you do it right, it keeps the ball end from jamming the pin up against the bridge. So if you ever have trouble removing your strings, the problem is that the ball end is jammed up into the pin. Let's get another one, another set up here. I need 3 hands to do this. Let's get this in caught here. There we go. Okay, here's one that's the slotted pin. And this is the worst possible combination. This is a slot and a slotted pin. And what will happen here is, I'll drop the pin on the guitar. What will happen is the ball will try to work its way up into this groove right here. Okay? There we go. The ball will try to work its way up into that, up in there. It'll bend the pin forward because these are soft plastic pins and they have an automatic stress factor with that slot, so that makes it weak. Alright. Again, I'll talk about this in another video, and I'm talking about the bridges, maybe something like that. So we're going to slot this bridge. I'm going to try to keep this video a little bit on the short side. Now, the first thing I do is fit the pins. Everybody's got their different ways of doing this. This is the way I like to do it. Is fit the pin first. I get my bevel on here. This is a bridge I made too, by the way. It's in one of the other videos. This is the D35 that we enlarged the sound hole on. And what else did this guitar get seen? The bridge has been scooted back. I made this bridge. So this is the bridge that I did in the video on bridge making. And so I fit the pins first. And the reason is so the reamer doesn't catch in the slot that I made right here. When you slot it, I got one of them slotted already. The reamer will want to catch in that, and I just don't like to do it that way. So I like to make sure my pins fit good. These are bone pins. One trick about bone pins is to make sure that they fit just a tiny bit loose. And the reason is the bridge wood will expand and contract. Bones is fairly unforgiving, you know. It doesn't have any give at all. And I've just noticed that all of my cracked bridges, and that's like, you know, half a dozen over 20 years, all of them had bone pins. So I just wonder if there's a correlation between that or not. So I like to have my bone pins just a little bit loose so that they don't have to push them down at all. I want them to drop in there. Down there, right there is just a hair tight. So I get the reamer, give it just a little ream so that it drops down to the collar. See that? You can hear it clink. That one's just a snug tight right there. If you don't have consistent pins, you may have to very well fit each pin and then mark it, you know, E, A, D, G, whatever. To make sure that it goes back in the same spot. Okay, so here's one that's slotted already. Now what I like to do, I'm going to show you 2 strings here. We're going to do the little E and the big E, because the big E is always the hardest one to do. It's going to take quite a bit of room on that one. I want my slots to put pretty snug. I don't want a lot of slop on the front of it. Oh, and by the way, this part is the ramp. The front part of that thing is the ramp as opposed to the slot. The slot goes straight up and down. The ramp controls the angle. So if you wanted to, you could ramp this on up into here so that the break angle of the string would be fairly consistent. It's not the same as having the pins in an angle with the saddle, but if you need to create a sharper break angle, you can do it with the ramp of the string. But the ramp is totally separate from the actual slot. So be sure you get your terminology correct. Now what I want to do here to test this fit is put that ball right there at the start of the hole, and I'm going to use the pin then to push it down in there while giving just a little bit of upward tension here. It clicks in, and then I want to see how the pin fits, and it goes in really smooth, not pushing, and it seats. Because I previously seated the pins, I know that now the pin is going to seat. So if I hit binding or anything on the way down, then I know it's the slot and not the actual pin fit. Okay, so that one fits where I want it. And the ball end, let me get my string winder. Not the ball end, the string winding. I should probably put a saddle in there too so I don't mess up my nice pretty bridge. There we go, there's a test saddle. We're going to need to check the action. I'll show you the guitar now. Let me get up close. And the winding stops right there because I'm not using the ramp to control anything. In fact, this guitar is going to have a pretty hefty saddle on it. Trying to get this into the camera. It's going to have a pretty good saddle on it, and I don't want too strong of a break angle on this. I like that about a 45-degree break angle. Okay, so that one's on. Now, let's do the low E because that's going to be the hardest one. I use a series of saws like this. I used to use two sizes. This one I think is a 58 and this one is a whatever. So the first thing we're going to do is find your mark where you're going to start your saw mark. I've previously used non-slotted pins in this bridge, and I did that for a reason, so that there would be a tiny little mark right here where the string wants to come over the bridge, and I let it automatically kind of set itself that way. So I can see all of these little marks right here, and I'm going to put just a pencil mark on them for reference, like that. You can control the exit point just a little bit, you know. I had one famous guitar builder, and when I was working on the guitar, he had the slot clear over here on the side, and it was obvious to me that he was trying to correct, because I've done this, he was trying to correct for a neck that wasn't perfectly aligned with the bridge. So he slotted everything off to the side to do that, and I thought, you know, I had to do neck reset on that guitar, and I re-angled the neck, filled in the slots, cut them in the center. But if you need to fudge it just a tiny bit, you can do that with the angle of the slot. But on this case, we're good, and I'm going to just cut straight down. So I take a saw and come in it like this, get it started. I'm using downstrokes. This is a downcut saw. And once I get a mark like that, then I'm going to go straight down like this. And I swear, I thought about just using a jigsaw to do this, you know, but I'm still doing it by hand. So I'm going straight down. I'm kind of using my thumb like this so that I don't pull the saw out and drive it into the top of the guitar. If you're not confident with your chewers, you could always mask off the top of the guitar. Now, there's no way in the world this single slot is going to fit the low E string. So what you need to do is round your saw. And you use this technique too to get the front of the slot rounded. You take it like this and you just kind of roll your saw back and forth. And you can make a wider cut than the saw. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. Now I know from experience about how deep this is going to be, and that's not nearly deep enough yet. Now I'm going to get my 58 It's just a little bit, obviously it's wider. I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna go straight up and down on that same hole. I just use the thinner saw because it's easier to get started. Okay, hit the binding, so I'm gonna come into the side. Pretty quickly I'm rounding it. Even though this is a 58, I'm rounding it because of course the winding is twice as thick as the string. So for instance, let's see how big this winding is. This is a 56 E string, and of course that winding is 65, 69, 70, somewhere around 70 thousandths of an inch, and the saw is 50. So I've got to increase it by 20 thousandths of an inch. What's that? Almost 50%, really, So I'm going to start rounding immediately. Okay, I don't think that slot's big enough yet, but check. That's the whole secret to this stuff, is to check it about 10,000 times. So again, put the string in there. Put the pin in. Look at that. I nailed it. First time. I think we did it really nice. Real smooth. And it's tight now. Because remember that pin was a little bit loose. It's easy enough to pull the pin out with my fingers, and now it's going in pretty snug. I'll show you. And I want a little tension. I want that string to have a little tension on the pin. Some people like to have their slots super deep and they pull the pin out and the string stays in there, and I don't really like that. I like to have the string put a little bit of tension on the pin to help hold the pin in, and also to transmit more of the string vibration to the pin so that you get the tone of the pin. Sometimes you'll hear people say, well, when you slot the bridge, the pins don't make any difference. And that's true if you have a super deep slot to where the string is right up against it and you don't even need a pin at all. In that case, the string never touches the pins, and the pins don't have much, if any, influence on the sound. But I don't like that. I like for the pins to have some influence on the sound. So look how loose this pin is. I'm able to just pull it out easily with my fingers, no problem at all. Let's use this way, maybe you can see. No problem. But when I put this string in there and push it down, it's just a little snug right there. And there it is. It's a little snug, but it's going to go down easily. Well, I mean, that's perfect. I almost never hit that. Okay, now when the string is in there, the pin's in there, pull up on the string right here. And make sure it's snugged against the ball end. That's very important, especially with bone pins. Because one thing about bone pins, and I'm winding the strings up over here. One thing about bone pins is if that ball end rattles on the string end, boy, it's noisy. Okay? So that's another thing, another reason I've kind of gotten away from bone pins, is they can be noisy. Let's do the B string here so you have one more string, since that E went so easily. Let me get the B and the A free up here at the headstock. Here we go. Now I'll show you. It's totally unslotted right now, so let's see what happens if we try to unslot, put it in there. It doesn't even go at all. See, that sticks up. Just to show you, shouldn't go at all. So I'm going to start with my little saw. There's my pencil mark. Just get it started right off the rim, and then straight down, rolling it immediately. The B is got a pretty fat winding on it. Let's check. The B winding is about 31 thousandths of an inch. Of course, it's a 16, so yeah, that would be about right. Twice, right? check the fit. String over. Put the ball in the hole, push, and I might make it on this one. It looks like it might do it. And it did. Fit really nicely. But the B string is the one that tends to catch the most when you try to pull it out. See, it's caught. So I'm going to make that ramp and that slot just a little bit bigger so that this one's got room to come out. See, there's one to catch down there. Most of the time, or many times when you have a buzz, it's going to be the B string because the slot's not quite big enough. So to get a little bit more ramp now, I'm going to angle this and I'm going to roll it like this. So take a look at the ramp here. Tiny, it just barely fit the string. I'm going to give it a little bit more. And I'm only working at the top of the hole right now. It fit good. The pin went in, and now I'm going to work with the ramp, and so I'm going to hold my saw at an angle, and I'm not going to do the whole entire slot up and down, just this way. That's why it was important to talk about the ramp versus the slot. What I'm doing here is just rounding off that front edge right there, making it just a little wider so that there's room for the winding up here. Make it a little bit easier to get it out. Okay? I like that. I'll show you. Got that one on the first try too. Yeah, I've done thousands of these, I bet. I mean, I don't think there's a guitar that's ever escaped my shop without being slotted. Okay? Maybe you can see that in the, I'm looking at a tiny picture, but I think you can see the difference in the windings on these two strings. The B's got coming forward just a little bit more. I gave it a little bit more room, and it should pull out a little bit easier this time. And I could slot the E up. I could ramp the E just a little bit more, and I might, when I get done. Okay? And so that's how I slot a bridge. And now I'm going to do the other three. And I guess you can watch if you want to, or you can shut off right now. I'll go ahead and do it. You can watch. Maybe we'll run into something. If you think you've learned everything that you need to learn, then adios. See ya. Like I said, I've done these so many times. I got a pretty good eye for when that slot is there. People often ask why, if slotting is better, why doesn't Martin just do it from the factory? Well, this is why right here. It takes time. Martin makes 77,000 guitars a year, last time I heard the number. And what's just taking me 20 minutes, 15 minutes? Multiply that by 77. And also, if you blow it, you blow it. You've got to, fix it then. Every time, every step that you do is an element of risk. I mean, I don't know if that's the reason or not, but I can just tell you that if I was Chris Martin and in charge of this sort of thing, I probably would not slot either. I'd come up with something, some way. And a lot of people don't know the difference between slotted and not slotted, so, It's kind of like a dirt bike analogy. There's a lot of things the common public could care less about on a dirt bike, and if you're a dirt bike aficionado, you know, or enthusiast, then you're particular about those things. So stock suspension is perfectly good for the majority of people. But once you've ridden a modified suspension that's tuned for you, for your style of riding, it's just, you can't go back. And, you know, that sort of thing. Handlebar bend, you know, all kinds of things. Customization, personalization. That's what I'm doing here. That's the A string now. It's going to take a little bit more. Let's check it. I don't want to blow it on the last slot on my bridge. If I do blow it, I'll fix it with wood scrap. There we go. I like that. I'll fix it with a piece of ebony, super glue it back in there, make it invisible. You'd never know. I don't blow it very often anymore though. So I tuned it, and the pin did not pop up. If your pin ever pops up, then that means that the string was down past the pin, and when you tighten it, it came up like this and pulled the pin out. So this is your string, and what's happening is it's hanging down below the pin, and as you tighten it, it comes up like this and pulls the pin up with it. If that pin, I'm sorry, if the ball end is properly seated against the bridge plate, this string is not going to budge ever. Period. Zippo. A lot of your tuning issues are due to the ball end creeping, the string moving up along the pin. So get it like this, pull on it. And the other thing to do is look at the winding up here. The winding should be pretty consistent. If you don't see one winding, then that ball end is stuck down in the hole more than likely. And I can see the tops of all the windings peeking out here, so I know it's pretty consistent. I'm going to snug them up here. And just to be sure, get my mirror, my flashlight, and I'm going to look. Are those ball ends snugged up against that bridge plate? And yes, they are. Every single one of them. You can also be particular about the alignment of the ball ends if you want to. I'm not that particular about it, but there's nothing wrong with being that particular. And that is, you decide whether the ball end is going to go this way on the pin. Let me show you. Is it going to go this way on the pin? Or are you going to have it that way on the pin? You see? And everybody's got their reasons for doing it. And I can't decide which way I like it, so I just let it lay. I've never noticed a big difference myself, but some people do, and there's nothing wrong with being consistent about it. I think I would prefer to have the flat side of the ball against the pin myself. I would probably prefer to have it this way on the pin. I want that flat side on there rather than the round side. But on the other hand, if you put the round side on it, then it's definitely going to bend over coming through the slot. So, in other words, the string itself lays in a different place on these two. So, I don't know. You think about it. You decide. There's nothing wrong with it. And what you do is you just twist the ball end around. I am more particular about having the bend of the string correct. So, well, there's that guitar. We slotted the bridge. I did a lot of talking. Bridge is now slotted. It's fit with non-slotted bone bridge pins. And now the last thing I'm going to do in this guitar is check the final action. I've got a test saddle in there that should be about right, but I'm going to string it up, and then I'm going to set the final action. And then I'm done with this guitar, and then we'll probably video it later to get the sound over. It's a large sound hole, D35. I screwed the bridge back. I did some other things that I can't remember. And I don't want to say that I pulled the popsicle brace or something like that and find out I wasn't supposed to. But so I got to look at the spec sheet and see exactly what I did to this before I talk about it. We'll do that. I'm going to record it. That's how we'll do. Okay. Bye-bye.